All right, we'll give people 30 seconds to get into our session. Make sure they don't miss any of the fantastic intro that we're going to do first. We also love when people put things in chat so we know they're alive. I could talk to myself all day long, but it's always pleasant to know that someone is listening out there. So if you do have some tricky things you've done with reporting, so I've seen so many creative solutions, feel free to share them in the chat. Your experiences are always welcome. Everyone here has had their own experience using the reporting, because at the end of the day, people want to know, what did our marketing assets actually do? So hopefully today we can help a little bit with talking about which tool should I use. I know the session name was B2BMA or some other reporting, but this is really about, we're going to talk about 3 different reporting tools, which are basically the part of the account engagement reporting, Salesforce reporting native, and then CRMA, which would include the B2BMA app. So the concept behind here is sort of a, where do I start? Where do I go? What is the intention? So I was very fortunate recently to listen to a Salesforce webcast where they talked about what their intention for each type of reporting was. And it did kind of answer some questions for me. So hopefully it will help you as well. So I am Dominique Beaudin. I work for Sercante. I work in analytics all day long. I also have experience in Power BI and SQL reporting services. So I've been working with reporting for a really long time. Most recently, last couple of years on the Salesforce side. So a lot of changes in a few years. The one thing I can say about the reporting tools that Salesforce offers is that they are constantly changing and there are constantly new features, which make it more and more exciting. The winter 23 release for CRMA was absolutely striking. And for the first time, I find myself saying things like, wow, you will be able to do more on the front end of CRMA than you can in Power BI without code, which is pretty cool. So I'm very optimistic about the future of the platforms. Of course, we need to give a special thanks to our sponsors. Without them, it would be very difficult to put on a session like this and be able to share our ideas and our talking and our general thoughts with you as an audience. So we're very excited to be able to do that and really appreciate their sponsorship. Intuition is key to reporting. That's obviously a joke. So when you're thinking about reporting, you often have somebody who says, I think this is what's happening. The goal of your reporting obviously should be able to say, I can prove that this is happening, or I can predict what's going to happen. So the whole point of having data in systems is reporting. So you can agree or disagree on this point, but everything that you do when you're putting your marketing efforts together, when you're thinking about how you want things to play out, where you're putting your data, how you're updating things, even your processes, how are your salespeople interacting with your leads and contacts? You should always be thinking about, when they are doing something, what am I going to do with it when I get it? And there are 2 reasons behind that. One is, if you make people enter things that you never use again, it sets a precedent where they don't want to do it anymore. That's the first issue, and it's a waste of time. The second issue is, no matter what you do, if you haven't tracked that exact right data point, you may or may not be able to see what you want to see. So in a sense, having the end in mind is really important. So the Salesforce reporting journey, I look at it as kind of a continuum. You have sort of audience, function, and complexity. So your account engagement reporting, your Salesforce reporting, and your CRMA, which includes the B2BMA analytics, is really sort of a continuum of reporting, from simpler to more complex reporting. One of the things about these platforms, which is pretty obvious if you think about it, is a lot of the reporting came from the origins of these platforms. So when we look at how the reports are behind the scenes, there are different schemas and databases that apply to each of these products. So for instance, in account engagement, the objects aren't necessarily in Salesforce. They're in account engagement. They're gradually bringing them in, but it does change the way things interact between Salesforce and account engagement. And it does change how reporting shows up. So since we have limited time, we're going to dive right in. Account engagement. So the target audience for account engagement is marketers. How are my assets doing? What are my assets doing today? Who in my audience is most engaged? How do I create audience builds and journeys that make sense for them? So when we're looking at the reporting from our account engagement product, we're really looking at things that are specifically action-based. What did my campaign do? What are my assets doing? What can I do to improve them? What am I seeing? Who's subscribing? Who's unsubscribing? It's very, very much focused on your actions and activities within the account engagement space. The upside to this is the reporting is very simple. You can tell what it is. It's very purpose-driven, but there are a few things to look out for. So the strengths, great at-a-glance asset performance. You can use your dynamic list for quick view of audiences, tracks campaigns and related metrics, view general performance of your marketing assets. Things to look out for, I like to call them kind of challenges, are there's a limited ability to customize. It's very purpose-based. You can export things, obviously, and put them in other systems, but your ability to link things together is a little bit more challenging. Detailed data must be exported to other systems for further analysis. So there really isn't a way to create custom report types or do anything special that way. And you can't really track the full journey from visitor all the way through, should say, opportunity. So when you're looking at all those bits, you don't necessarily have that whole vision. You can get it, but it's not within that product directly. Salesforce reporting. Salesforce reporting is really purpose-driven. So operational reporting is what Salesforce reporting is best known for. So when we're looking at, I'm a sales manager, we can create a view of what's going on. How many opportunities have come in? How many opportunities have gone out? Who are my key where is the velocity of my opportunities? Where are they going? And also some other key things like regional things and areas of where you can see where there's more activity. So this is a great tool for a few different audiences. It can be used for all kinds of things, including your KPI reporting, but it's really, really geared toward, I'm a sales manager, I want to have one view of what's going on. Or I'm a salesperson and I want to have one view of what's going on. Or I want to look over my assets for a period of time, maybe using a campaign engagement, something like that, to kind of get a feel for what's happening with my assets. This Salesforce reporting has lots of strengths. There's lots of standard report types for common data needs. You can create dashboards with many different operational views. You can also change the security so that the person who is looking at the dashboard actually has their own security applied to it. That makes it a lot easier to be able to manage that. You can do history tracking to see trends and comparisons. In order to do that on some objects, though, you do need to turn on the history tracking. So that gives you kind of an idea of some of the complexity behind the scenes to make the reporting do what you want to do. You have connections between objects are created for you. And what that really means is when you're reporting within the Salesforce report area, you don't have to build the report structure. So if I pick opportunities with contact roles or opportunities with contacts, Salesforce in the report type that they create, that's right out of the box, has already put together the schema. So they're putting together all the objects and all the relationships. And if you're used to reporting in Salesforce, you're like, well, that's normal, right? Isn't that what every reporting tool does? But there are actually quite a few reporting tools where you're building that schema in the background and then developing your reports on top of it. So that's actually a big advantage. You can also create custom report types, and you can get detailed information in graphs. So you can do much more visualizations with that. So you can take a look at things and easily turn into graphs and still have the detail below. A few things to look out for. Dashboards have to have like filters. So you can put all kinds of stuff on a dashboard, but if you want to filter the whole dashboard, they have to have exactly identical filters, and you're limited to 3. You can't union objects together. And I'll give a really specific example, which is, so let's say you want to look at your contacts and your leads together as separate entities. So I have 15 leads and 15 contacts, and they're associated with an opportunity. I can't union those together to see them all. They have to be joined in a different way. They're gradually putting more capability around that in the platform, but right now that is a limitation. Objects have to be connected together if you want to do a custom report type via lookup relationships to create a join. So if I want to be able to take a custom object and attach it to something else, I have to do the lookup within the actual object, which is more coding, more work, and you have to be careful with that because not every lookup gives you exactly the relationship that you want. You also can't create custom rules easily to manage data. And what I'm specifically referring to here as a person who writes a lot of reports is like your if, then, else, or max count, or max of something. So there are just certain scripted things you cannot do in Salesforce reports that are kind of a big deal and make it a little bit more difficult to create the reports that you want. You have limited drill through. So when you click on something, it immediately goes into the report, doesn't keep you on the dashboard. So it's sometimes a little bit of a hodgepodge when you're going through it. And you also need to be pretty creative to come up with some, if you have special needs for your reports. So probably if you have a custom object and opportunities and some other thing and you want to link them together, there's probably a way to do it. But very often, if it's something that's really not right out of the box, you have to think about things like, do I have to create a flow for it? Is that being updated? Is my lookup connected all the time? Making sure all of those things work. So that's what I mean by creativity. I've seen some very creative things in Salesforce reporting, and it certainly does have a lot of capabilities, but it's definitely something that requires a lot of creativity. So the other really great strength of Salesforce reporting is the fact that other people have written dashboards and reports, and they are available on the App Exchange. So whenever you're looking for reporting, the first place I always go is out to the App Exchange for a few reasons. One, somebody has already thought of it and used it and put it out there for my use. And two, it's a great place to get examples of reporting. So another massive advantage of Salesforce reports is there is a ton of documentation on how to create and how to update and how to make reports that will suit your needs. So there's a good chance if you have a reporting need that somebody else has also solved that. So between trailheads and documentation and the discussion groups, usually you can find something that helps you solve your problem. So I know every time I have a formula concern and I need to write something new, I just usually Google it. I can usually get the entire formula. So I once had to find like a 10 nested if-then statement. I didn't have to write it. It was for an object, but nonetheless, that community makes the reporting really strong. And not every reporting tool has that. So that's a pretty big deal. Finally, we have my favorite, Analytics CRM. Analytics CRM includes B2BMA, which is something that probably a lot of you use since it's connected to account engagement. And the big difference between this tool and the other tools, it is very flexible. So the whole concept behind this is you want to be able to take lots of different data sources, put them together, and come up with very flexible visualizations. So this is just one example. But you can definitely, this is one from the B2BMA dashboard, marketing pipeline. You can see a lot of things on one screen. And even though each of the components on this screen actually comes from a different object, they all can join together and they can all filter together. So you have the flexibility of being able to bring lots of things together that may or may not be joined in the first place. The other really big advantage of the CRMA is the ability to install apps. Depending on your license version, there are many out-of-the-box apps. So for example, B2BMA is one of them. So B2BMA essentially brings into the reporting, into CRMA, data sets related to activities, data sets related to summarized marketing metrics, clicks, revenue, all that good stuff, and puts it all in one place where you can review it all on a single dashboard. So the nice thing about this is you can take pretty much any idea. As long as you can connect the data together, you can create a report that will match what you need. So when we look at this particular one, if we look at the B2BA marketing analytics, this is actually kind of intellectual, it's IP that comes with the product. So Salesforce has taken the information that most marketers need and created the dashboards, the KPIs, the filters, everything you might need to actually use it. So you don't need actual staff to do it. That's the big difference. So when you go in here, if you need to look at something like this marketing pipeline health, to try to develop this between Salesforce and account engagement really wouldn't be possible. So they're able to do that and create that for you. So it's that whole data science without your data scientist. The other nice thing about this is the one thing, it's nice or it's not nice, it makes assumptions about how you actually how you use your leads and how they go through the funnel. So Salesforce makes the assumption that everyone is using sort of a standard lead to opportunity type situation. So strengths, there's apps available. You can create a custom data set from any CRM object. So that means if I create a custom object and it's enriching another object, I can put them together and make my very own dashboards any way I want. No custom lookups. I don't have to modify the object. I can also do a lot of scripting in terms of case statements. So an example, I talked about the leads and contacts. Let's say I have a Salesforce that prefers to use contacts and a marketing department that prefers to use leads. I know, rare use case. There are actually ways that you can put those together and treat them as though they're the same and follow the journey across both of those to the opportunity. And that's something that you wouldn't be able to do in either system. And you can create rules to report on special business rules. So if you have groups that are based on region or geography, instead of having 15 fields inside of different objects, you can create rules right within CRMA to do that. Predictive analytics, they've been pushing that really hard. With the newer versions, there are new ways of doing prediction for the next value. And those are going to be huge as people are looking at, we've been looking at lagging indicators. What happened? What happened? What happened? And I think we've been gradually over the last 5 years or so, we've been moving from looking at lagging indicators, like what happened in the past and what could we change? And now we're looking at leading indicators like, okay, this happened, so this is likely to happen if we do that. And that's where the Einstein analytics and the artificial intelligence comes in, because it's able to look across your data sets and be able to apply some of that logic. And obviously, there are many objects within Salesforce that do that as well. But inside of the CRMA, you can use it in your reporting quite easily. Advanced bindings and formulas, kind of talked a little bit through that. And then custom widgets and dashboards. So there's a lot of custom widgets on the dashboard. There's input widgets. There's just way more flexibility and more options available there. You can also flatten the data together to create the visitor to opportunity funnel, which is something that people are always interested in doing. And then multiple business unit reporting. Actually, CRMA is the only place you can do that. That's the recommendation from Salesforce. So you are able to create, let's say for B2BMA, a business unit that each of them has a B2BMA app, and join them together so you can have that universal reporting. The challenge is, when you're creating your own data sets, you have to validate very carefully and just make sure that they are correct, that the data has the same number of rows before and after, and compared to Salesforce as well. There are definitely some skills needed for the advanced features and creation. As I said at the beginning of this call, they are greatly simplifying this product. Just in the last release, I discovered this 2 days ago, you can now join 2 different objects together in a visual format that's very, very easy that anyone can do. So I'll be writing a blog on that one soon because I was pretty excited. Built-in apps that they have, if you buy them, may not match your business use case. And one example that comes to mind is if you use a custom fiscal period, forecasting apps don't work the way that they should. I think they're working on that. Licensing costs, that's a big one. You kind of get what you pay for in this case because you can get a lot done. An example of the use case for this app, even though it costs a little bit more, is the idea that there are people taking data from Excel, from account engagement, from Salesforce, and exporting it and spending hours creating PowerPoint presentations and creating big giant spreadsheets that they share amongst many, many people. And what ends up happening when you're doing that is eventually the data becomes inaccurate somewhere along the way, usually. Also, it's hours and hours of time. If you were to take CRMA, import the Excel data, import whatever you need from everywhere, and put it in one place, you can dramatically reduce that time. So I think when you're thinking about what to use for your reporting and what you're trying to accomplish, that time use is very important because time is money. The other issues are limited data detail from account engagement. So you get some data, but you don't get all of it. So your views, you can get that summarized, but you don't necessarily get a click by click. So there are a few challenges there. So those are just kind of overviews on the different tools that are available out there and some of their common use cases. So thank you so much for your attention. I appreciate your being here. If you have any questions, we do have a couple of minutes for those. So feel free to.
Yes, Dominique, we have 3 questions that came through during your presentation. If you want me to read those out loud for you.
Yes, please.
All righty. First one up is, can I see an email's performance for each list I've created? And then in parentheses, which is an audience.
Okay, you mean in different tools. You can definitely see it in account engagement. Can you repeat the question? I want to make sure I'm answering it correctly.
Yeah, can I see an email's performance, for each list I've created? So for each audience, can you see an email's performance?
Depending on how you segment your audience. So if you're using CRMA, the B2BMA app, you can use a tag to segment your audience. They don't have a filter necessarily for that, but you can also see there is a list emails, a data set that you can use to look at that. I believe on the account engagement, it is a standard report, but I'm not sure it exactly matches. It depends what you want to do for that reporting.
All right, awesome.
And if others have ideas around that, please feel free to chime in because there's so many different options in terms of reporting. A lot of creative minds out there.
All right, and our next question is, On one of your slides, you had that target audience, sales manager, and operations personnel dashboard. Someone just wanted to know what reporting tool helped make this.
That one is Salesforce reporting, and I believe it's on the App Exchange.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that was actually done in Salesforce. So somebody put this together and threw it out there, and I like the details, so I grabbed it.
All right. And then we got about 3 minutes left. So another question we got is that Salesforce sold a company, Datarama, aka Marketing Cloud Intelligence now. How does that fit into / compare to these reporting tools you went over?
What a great question. I recently became marketing intelligence certified, so I feel like it's an up-to-date topic for me. Essentially, Datarama is really about bringing in those external, your Google Analytics, and putting them, it's got the schema already created for the report. So the idea is that when you bring in, it could be Google or Adobe or whatever your analytics are, it has a pre-created database that it goes into that can have pre-configured reports already in there. So that's the big advantage. And they also have the ability to look at where your ad spend is going. So what they've done is they said, most marketers use these 300 sources, and then they created APIs for many of those 300 sources, and they bring them into a format where the whole structure of the data is already made for you. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to write it. You can just go ahead and start writing reports on top of it. And that's really where Datarama shines. So if you have 20 or 30 data sources that are that are connected by the API, so the Google, all you have to do is really connect and bring them in. And then you have your whole database there, and there's pre-configured apps and templates and dashboards that you can look at. They also have something that actually manages your spend, which is an add-on to it. And there's also multi-touch in there, but that's really where they shine. So they're really for high volume data where you have a lot going on and you want to be able to bring it all together without doing any of the back end push.
Awesome. Thank you. And then we have one more came through last minute. Is there a relatively straightforward way to show how many Pardot emails were involved to win an opportunity? Another way to say it, connecting a prospect's email activity to a contact's opportunity role. And this person started creating a data recipe and just wants to know, is that the right direction?
I would actually say that probably is the right direction, because as you already know, campaigns are linked to opportunities through contact roles, but you don't know which email, you just know which campaign. So probably what you're doing is what I would do, which is you start with your prospect activity data set, you enhance that with your prospects, you go through your campaign members, look at your multi-touch, and then connect that back to the opportunity. So you're probably on the right road with the recipe to get to that level of detail. So if I want to say exactly which email that contact interacted with in order to get to that opportunity, that is really the road to do it. And if there's another way, somebody please comment, because I want to know it too.
Awesome. Thank you. With that concludes today's session. You have roughly 30 minutes before the next one.
30
so
seconds.
thank you again for joining us, everybody. Thank you, Dominique, for the great session.
Thank you, Jordan. Everybody enjoy the rest of the presentations.
Thank you, everybody.